Welcome to the 10th edition of the Philosophy of Computer Games. We're really happy to have all of you here. After Copenhagen, Reggio Emilia, Potsdam, Oslo, Athens, Madrid, Bergen, Istanbul, and Berlin. It's kind of more like Berlin, sorry. We meet here what promises to be an exciting 3 days of lectures and discussions revolving around games and philosophy. And it's really a pleasure to see so many lovely familiar faces and other lovely faces. Okay, don't want to discriminate on the familiarity front. Over not just at our country, but also in our institution. We're really honored to host you in our little patch of gameness that we've worked so hard to cultivate over the last 4 years since the Institute of Digital Games has been established. Now, the 15 researchers that make up the Institute hail from a variety of disciplines, ranging from the humanities to design, HCI, and computer sciences. Our master's program similarly follows this multidisciplinary structure. When I found this institute, there was no question for the need of this multidisciplinary approach to both game research and education. It mirrors, after all, the overall structure within game studies, the inherent multidisciplinarity in game studies. And there are great advantages to this multidisciplinarity. We are able to tackle complex media, this complex media object games from a variety of perspectives, garnering the accumulated wisdom and techniques of colleagues that not only hold a different body of knowledge from us, but also see the world from a very different perspective. This allows for a lot of rich inspiration and collaborations that bear fruit that would not otherwise be possible in a unidisciplinary approach. But there are also challenges. One of these is the risk of spreading ourselves too thin, of lacking enough shared disciplinary knowledge to take our understanding of the objects and cultures of inquiry forward productively. The challenge we face on this front, the multidisciplinary front, is thus to ensure a solid common ground for critical discussion and feedback, which can sometimes be lacking in more general conferences, not by design, but just by the very nature of the number of disciplines that are in the same room as you when you're presenting. This is something that is a bit of a concern I'm hearing more often in more general conferences, such as DIGRA or SIGS even. The Philosophy of Computer Games series has given a much needed platform for discussion for this sort of focused conversation, since it emphasizes approaches to computer games that are more limited in their disciplinary scope, at least more limited to philosophy and the theoretical humanities. And with this tightness of focus that the Philosophy of Computer Games has adhered to, we find a closer matching of papers and reviewers than is possible in most multidisciplinary game conferences, resulting in what I believe is a more focused host of papers, invited speakers, and keynotes. And this has resulted, in my opinion at least, in a richer series of conversations that I've seen in more multidisciplinary venues. Of course, there's good reasons for those multidisciplinary venues to exist as well, but I think a balance of both is very important. And this follows on from the Games and Theory conference workshop that we had at DIGRA, which basically was an hour of discussing exactly this kind of balance between the two. A number of yesterday's panelists highlighted different approaches that exist even within this venue. Continental philosophy and analytical philosophy, for example, and to that I would add a host of other papers submitted every year that are more rooted in the theoretical humanities, or the theoretical side of game studies, but are informed or inform philosophical concerns. What that means, what this broader, this more grey area, I guess, means for the conference is still being discussed. I think it's part of the normal process of the conference series growth and development to narrow its scope, perhaps, and it has been narrowing its scope over the conference series, but at the same time allow for not strictly maybe fully philosophical approaches only, but welcome others that are wanting to be inspired by or learn this kind of approach to games. I think that all these approaches have their place, and I think yesterday's discussion was going in that direction, even though we have these different traditions within the conference series. I think there's room for coexistence, which is what we've seen anyway till now. Yeah, and I would really like to thank the members of the organizing committee, including Daniel and Stefano, who are next to me here. And I'd like to thank all of you for flying across land and sea to come to our little island and institution for this event. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Daniel Vella. This is my colleague Stefano Gualeni, Program and Organizing Committee Chairs respectively for this edition of the conference. And I would like to reiterate Gordon's welcome to this 10th edition of the conference series. I wanted to say a very quick word about the theme we chose for this year's edition. You know by now that the theme we eventually went with was knowledge. After all, many of you have already contributed, and over the next 3 days we'll be presenting illuminating contributions on the subject of knowledge in games. But there was a lot of debate and discussion before this final decision was taken. We tried out a lot of possibilities, and we considered a set of related terms as possible themes. So we toyed with ideas like curiosity, exploration, discovery, experimentation, epistemology, etc., before we settled on knowledge as the term at the center of this cluster of concepts. So when considering this wider web of related concepts, the theme of knowledge is in games is a rich one. To quote from the call for papers, games inspire curiosity. As we explore and experiment with a game, our engagement is to a great degree shaped by epistemic processes of inquiry and discovery. The questions we wanted to invite when setting this theme were: what knowledge is learned through playing a game? What does it mean to know a game? What forms of knowledge apply? How do games shed light on the epistemic processes of inquiry and discovery by which we gain knowledge of the world? So the question of knowledge in games opens up across many layers, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of those layers explored throughout these 3 days. But I would like to single one out for particular focus. And again, to quote from the call for papers, the fourth of the sub-questions that we listed to provoke thought in our initial call was the one you read up on screen there. So we've already mentioned that this is the 10th edition of this conference series. And that's an important milestone, and one which invites us not only to take account of the series' considerable achievements, but also to take our reflexive turn and re-examine the founding assumptions of the entire enterprise of games philosophy. In short, what knowledge do we seek to gain by thinking about and with games from a philosophical perspective? This self-reflexive turn comes at a time when the horizons of the conference series are expanding. For the first time, a PhD consortium was organized in conjunction with the conference. That happened yesterday. Some of you here took part in that. We received a lot of interest, enough interest to cause us some logistical issues to make sure that we would not turn anyone away. We'd like to think that this speaks to a number of positive developments. Right? The rapid consolidation of a community, defined in part at least by the conference series itself. Perhaps also the formation of an academic tradition undergoing a generational iteration, perhaps. Another aspect of this sense of an expanded possibility space is the wide thematic and conceptual variety in the papers submitted in response to the call. I'm happy that Gordon also spoke about this interpreting about disciplinarity and the specific focus of this conference series. But even within the focus that philosophy of computer games provides, this year we've received quite a wide variety of papers in response to the call. A quick look at the program will reveal papers that treat epistemology, aesthetics, critical theory, research through design, systems theory, philosophy of space, ethics, ontology, post-humanism, and that's not even a complete list. Yeah, I'll pass over to Stefano.
Well, thank you. I would also like to chime in and connect to topics that Daniel and Gordon talked about. So, we are taking this 10th anniversary as an opportunity to reflect on the multidisciplinarity of enterprise, and also to sort of reflect on what it means for us as a community to be at this point, and how to move forward, and to sort of make sense of the past we've been through together. Most of the faces I see in front of me have been to several of the conferences, and so I have no problem saying that probably 60% of the people present here are part of this community in a stable manner. So in terms of reflecting about that, or rather self-reflecting about that, we observed that two of the topics of the panels brought up yesterday had to do with this moment of sort of self-recognizing and making decisions for the future of this conference, and also about the possibility to use different forms of mediation. So again, different approaches, different media, and a moment of self-reflection. This is the reason why we chose these particular panels for the initial pre-session of this conference. And this idea of multidisciplinarity and both expanding and the need to reflect on what we're doing also emerged, in my opinion at least, but this is shared by everybody around the table. Actually, Daniel participated in discussing about this in quite a vibrant manner, is the fact that we start to see also game design come back into the horizon of how we do game philosophy. I'm thinking about, for example, about the fact that we started in Istanbul with a keynote by Mary Flanagan, who's also a game designer. Then we had Paolo from Molla Industria, an activist and game designer, last year in Berlin. And this year, who is not here yet, right? But we're going to have tomorrow a game designer and philosopher, then Pinchback, who works for the, and in the Chinese room, which is his video game project. As sort of organizers, I would like to also mention that those are for us themes that we encourage you to discuss and keep talking and thinking over along the whole course of the conference. And we're going to have a closing moment, which is normally the closing panel for our community, in which we hope to see those topics and decisions, reflections, ideas, criticism coming together to sort of as a springboard for us to move forward, right? Then you know 30 minutes. Oh no, it's me. Okay. So I hope this is clear. Again, multidisciplinarity and self-reflexivity are two key themes of what we want to talk about and what we hope you will also like to talk about. And in terms of self-reflexivity, here's us. In the sense that we are on the stage right now, me and Daniel. This was taken on the very first day we decided to look for a location. So we were not yet sure we were going to be talking here. But we are on the stage, and this is not the whole of the organization. As a matter of fact, a lot of people decided to help and contribute to this. In particular, thank you to John Friend and everybody else in the organizing committee and the program committee. It's a lot of people that made this possible. So guys, you're awesome, and you have our gratitude for a long number of years. Also thanks, as a chair of the organization, to the Ministry of Finance, the University of Malta, and the Institute of Digital Game, who contributed both financially and logistically to making this venue possible. And last but not least, the Philosophy Department, the Department of English, and our lovely reviewers who made this whole thing possible. Thank you so much. Yeah. Before we launch into our keynote, I just say a quick word about the program and the organization over the next few days. So each day opens with a keynote at 10 a.m. All the sessions are going to be held in this room. There are going to be coffee breaks after each conference session, so we will keep you going, hopefully, until 6 o'clock. Lunch is not included within the conference, but there is a variety of lunch options in close proximity to the university if you would like recommendations regarding restaurants or cafes to go to, approach one of us and we will be happy to help. There are social events in the evening. Tonight there is a reception at Blitz, and Blitz is an art gallery just a few minutes walk away from the current venue, so just hang around right after the conference and we will walk you there. Free food will be provided, and just a good venue for us to kind of hang around and mingle a bit after the first day of the conference.
Tomorrow there is dinner at Umami in Rabat. If you've already booked for that, transport will be available from right outside the conference venue again after the final session tomorrow. That's it from me.
Okay, so, Okay, so with a couple of minutes to spare, I would like to introduce our first keynote speaker, which you've probably seen yesterday in a couple of occasions. He was part of the PhD consortium, and he was also giving a guest lecture yesterday at the Department of Philosophy. I will just take a couple of minutes to introduce our speaker. And you probably heard this yesterday because everybody introducing Professor Demol had the same sort of list of points, which I'm going to enrich with something a bit more personal. So, if I were to go the normal way, the canonical way, the way that is on Demol's website, you would learn that Demol is a full professor of philosophy of man and culture at the Faculty of Philosophy at the Erasmus University of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Were I to continue, I would tell you that he also taught at the University of Michigan, also in Shanghai, in Kyoto, and he's currently a visiting fellow at the Institute of Advanced Studies in Princeton, United States. This is probably taken in his trip to Japan, I guess. So leaving aside what you could find on his website, I would like, as I told you, to add a personal note to this because I have known Professor Demol for many years. As a matter of fact, he was my PhD supervisor and a person who I consider a friend and a professional whose kindness and wisdom I have never stopped admiring and aspiring to. So I really hope one day I will grow up to become somebody like Professor Demol. In terms of my own philosophical work and relationship with students, he was incredibly patient and engaging whatever I brought to him. So, I mean, thank you again for all this. Okay, so if you look at me out just now, that's great. So, another point that perhaps we cannot read in his bio is the fact that, well, I tried to get him engaged in this community for at least 3 years, if I can remember rightly, and finally I managed to have him here to talk to you and hopefully inspire and enrich your lives as much as he did with me. To conclude, very briefly, he has a bunch of publications and great books such as Romantic Desire in Postmodern Art, The Tragedy of Finitude, Cyberspace Odyssey, Destiny Domesticated, and so on and so forth. You can find this in any list of publications that mention the Professor Demol, and he normally does not speak about games, so this is sort of a little bit of an exception. But he recently published something that you can definitely read in case you're interested in his vision, which is called The Game of Life, Narrative and Ludic Identity Formation in Computer Games in the MIT Handbook of Computer Game Studies. Okay, I've been talking for a long time, 4 minutes now, so without further ado, with his keynote titled Games as a True Organon of Philosophy on Schelling, Huizinga and Playful Ontologies, please, Professor Demol.
Thank you very much.